one of the craziest things. So when we started doing paychecks and stuff, we just want to see like, all right, what do you guys do? Like, just what did you spend your money on, right? Because we pay them really well, the camp, and they're living off about $7 a month. Is what they get from UNHCR, which UNHCR is a great organization, but they're underfunded. They can only do so much. There's 10 million refugees in Africa. Like it's crazy, and that's just Africa, right? So they're doing the best job they can, but because of that, like $7 a month, it's not a lot. So like when we started paying them, we're like, hey, what are you doing? Like, we just want to know. And like, well, I bought some corn. I bought shoes for my brothers and sisters, all these other things. And then every single time they said, oh, and I fed the neighbors. I fed all my neighbors, right? And it's like, I don't do that. You know what I mean? And it's amazing the community that you see with individuals, and like, people are better than we give it credit for. We always hear these terrible stories, but the truth is, like, people are good. And given the chance, they will do good things. They want to help, even those that have nothing. Like, they'll still help their neighbors. You know what I mean? And the fact that these individuals that are borderline starving, as soon as they get some funds, they feed their neighbors. They make sure their neighbors are okay.
Welcome, everyone, back to the Sean Trey Show. I've got a really awesome guest with me today. Would you like to tell people who you are and a little bit about what you do?
Yeah, my name is Tyler Clark. I'm the co-founder of Zawadie, and we help camp refugees connect with U.S. companies to get them out of poverty.
How did you start this journey, man? Like, that's amazing. How did you go down that path, and what was the catalyst that got you going on this path?
Yeah, man, that's an interesting question. So me and my wife, we've been building libraries throughout Africa and Asia and Latin America for the last 10 years. And we built one in the camp, and I knew basic stuff and, refugee camps and stuff like that. But when we went down there, it was just crazy, because you meet women like this where, she speaks perfect English, and you're like, hey, what's your story? And she's like, I got my master's degree from the Ivy League school in the United States. I'm like, wait, what? like, what the frick are you doing here? And, she said, well, I was a Fulbright scholar. I came back to my country. I was working for the embassy. And then for political reasons, I had to flee my country, right? For political violence and other stuff. And now I'm here and living in a shack. And it's just the most heartbreaking stories. It's not like, one thing that people don't understand about refugees is a lot of them are very well educated. They're very well skilled. And that's the reason why they're driven out of their country.
Wow.
Right? And another thing they don't realize is that they're there in these camps, which are more like cities, for on average 16 years. So
really?
It's not really like a weekend camp. They go in their place. They're there for a long time. And the opportunities are just not there. Xenophobia, racism, all this stuff are present. It's really this heartbreaking situation for this group that people just don't know about or care about.
Don't know about, and they don't care about because they don't know so often. I was reading, like right now, I have family that lives in Western North Carolina, and they're still dealing with stuff. But I mean, how many places from the devastation of the hurricane and that hit Western North Carolina, they're still rebuilding, and yet everyone talks about all these other things that are flashier, all these other. But like, the reality is there is stuff happening around the world that we don't hear about, and like, people, everywhere around the world, there's stuff going on, and people. You would hope that people would want to get involved, but there's also the other problem. That what was it that psychological case? I remember I studied this in psychology, and it was about, there was this lady who was getting attacked on her street, and everyone on the street heard the attack.
Yeah.
Everyone heard the thing that was going on, and they heard her for crying out for help for hours, and everyone assumed that someone else would help. And this lady ended up dying out there, and they studied this case because people think someone else is going to get involved. And like, at the end of the day, if you want to make things better, you have to get involved. At the end of the day, you have to do something.
Yeah. No, I love that. And honestly, I read that story too in college, and like, it's so depressing
Right.
Like with human, but like the truth is, like, you find with society, like even at the camp, it is the most beautiful thing to see how many people are trying to help, and also the refugees themselves, right? Like you hear their stories, and it's the most heartbreaking things of like a mother that was raped in front of them, a father that was killed in front of them. They had to flee their, they had to flee their private schools, all this stuff to come and survive and be at the camp. But yet they're hopeful, they're optimistic. They want to. One of my favorite is this family. Just the whole family had to flee for their uncle went into politics, which is a big no in the Congo. So they had to flee. They came there, and they were very well off before they came. Now they're living, just meal to meal, which is like 500 calories a day. And his dad sits them all down, is like, guys, this is our time, just like the children of Israel, right? Time through the wilderness. We are going to learn, we're going to progress, because someday we're going to be placed in the country. And we want to be the best benefit we can to that country. So you guys, you go learn, you go educate yourself. And honestly, like those kids, we've hired most of their, 20, 30-year-old kids to come work for us because their English is amazing. They know how to computer program. Like they're some of the smartest, I should call them kids, but like the smartest youth that I've seen, just because of their dad turning a terrible situation to like, no, this is our time to prepare, guys. This is our time to progress and better ourselves. It's just amazing.
Remember the movie Groundhog Day? Bill Murray gets stuck in the same day. One of the things too is they when they talk about that movie, for people who haven't seen it, it's a great watch. This guy gets stuck in one day, and he has the opportunity to, in the beginning, he just starts squandering every day, and he just turns to debauchery, and he just is depressed. But then eventually he realizes that he can help people. And so he starts to try to better himself and better the world around him. Because at the end of the day, many people have gone through challenging times, but that's so beautiful that you can make something of it, and you can see it as your time in the wilderness, preparing for something better. And the fact that they're able to set out that mission of helping people is so beautiful, man. So thank you for sharing that.
Well, one of the craziest things. So when we started doing paychecks and stuff, we just want to see like, all right, what do you guys do? Like, just what do you spend your money on, right? Because we pay them really well, the camp, and they're living off about $7 a month.
Wow.
That's what they get from UNHCR, which UNHCR is a great organization, but they're underfunded. They can only do so much. There's 10 million refugees in Africa. Like it's crazy. And that's just Africa. Right. So they're doing the best job they can. But because of that, like $7 a month, it's not a lot. So like when we started paying them, we're like, hey, what are you doing? Like, we just want to know. And like, well, I bought some corn. I bought shoes for my brothers and sisters, all these other things. And then every single time they said, oh, and I fed the neighbors. I fed all my neighbors. Right. And it's like, I don't do that. You know what I mean? And it's amazing the community that you see with individuals, and like people are better than we give it credit for. We always hear these terrible stories, but the truth is like people are good, and given the chance, they will do good things. They want to help, even those that have nothing. Like they'll still help their neighbors. You know what I mean? And the fact that these individuals that are borderline starving, as soon as they get some funds, they feed their neighbors. They make sure their neighbors are okay.
That's beautiful, man. So you saw you were setting up these libraries. You saw these stories. How did the company, this organization, come about? What were the steps that kind of pulled that all together?
Yeah. So anyway, we saw this talent, and we saw like it's 91% unemployment rate. There's really not jobs in the camp. And if you think about it, like the camps were built to be a temporary fixture. Like nothing's really changed to look at the reality of like, hey, they're not going anywhere. Right. And, with the refugee resettlement plan that's just been banned in the United States, like we were the biggest support for refugees to get a place. Now, where are they going to go? So anyway, there's not a lot of opportunity. So anyway, when I got back, I talked to some tech companies here in Utah, and I was like, hey, could we try like with Starlink and computers? We already have internet set up. We have solar panels. We have a facility. Could we try to do remote jobs? So we started doing lead generation. We started doing customer service. And that we did a pilot to see if it worked. That was wildly successful. And then we saw, hey, there's some potential here to do some good, but also create a company that can actually grow and help more and more refugees. So anyway, we started that, just less than a year ago. And now we've helped 220 refugees come out of poverty.
That's amazing.
So it's been a fun journey.
That's amazing, and it's like it's such a win on all sides, man. It's like you are you giving solutions that need to be provided for companies, and it's like that. There was this. I saw this interview of Mr. Beast, Jimmy Donaldson, the other day, and he was talking about when he was talking to like the people sourcing chocolate, and finally he was talking to them, and he was like, in this interview, he's like, none of it's ethically sourced, and like all of the companies know this, and they're like, wait, you just buy it, buy it from whoever, and he's like, hang on, I'm in the position that I can make a difference. Like, let's do that. Let's make a difference. Let's source this from a place that's like, and what was interesting is because when they asked him, like, well, why are you doing this? And he's like, because it's the right thing to do. Like, just going along with it, these things, because that's what everyone does. That's not an excuse that works. He's like, that's not what I'm going to do. That's not how we're doing it. We're going to do this the right way. And it was interesting because he's like, and then we're going to show them that you can have profits and do things the right way. Like, that's kind of what it is. Like, you can make money. You can help people at the same time. You don't have to try to suck every last dollar out of everything. So it's beautiful. Like, everyone can thrive. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, there's bountiful and plenty around the world to share as long as we like. And the funny thing is, when you do that, it's like the tide that raised all the ships, right?
Yeah.
And I love Mr. Beast. I love what he's doing with that, because like I've been to a lot of the cocoa farms in Ghana, and like they're it's pretty hard.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, life's you're not making a killing by being a cocoa farmer down in Ghana. But like, an interesting thing with the camp is there are a lot of awesome nonprofits there that they try to hire who they can to get the jobs. I mean, jobs really make a difference. But at the same time, like, the economics are such that we had a lot of discussion internally about like, how much do we pay them, right? And because we're looking at other nonprofits and what they're paying, like, wow, that's not a lot. But like, their philosophy is like, well, we can hire a ton of individuals, hire them less, which that's debatable whether that's good or bad. I can see each side. But we kind of looked at it as like, well, we want them to be able to save money. So we want to look at if they didn't receive any benefit from UNHCR, any funds, what would it cost for them to pay for all their food, to provide for their whole family, which they all have families of like 8 or 10, just huge families, and they adopt kids that don't have parents either. So what could we do? And like, our goal has been, let's pay them enough so they can save, because one of the interesting things, like, we want to do this so they can place themselves, because nobody wants to be a refugee for the rest of their life, right? And it's kind of like winning the lottery to get placed in the United States or Canada or any of these locations. But if they have enough money, they can actually place themselves in another African country if they can buy land, right?
Oh, wow.
And so our goal has been to pay them enough so they can save and provide for themselves. And the interesting thing is we got a lot of flack for it from the other organizations.
Really?
Because of course they're like, you're paying them so much, you're stealing our best people, as well as they're asking us to start paying them more. And I don't know if this is good or bad. This is kind of a social experiment. When you're trying to like figure this stuff out, like, you try to do the best job you can, but at the same time, they're starting to have discussions like, oh gosh, and we have to pay our people more. And we have to pay them more, because if we want to keep this talent, not lose them to Zawadie, we got to pay them a little bit more, which in my opinion, is a good thing. Whether that's good or
Yeah.
bad, we'll see. Because whenever you do like humanitarian work or you're trying to make a difference, like we call them wicked problems. There's always problems. There's always things like, okay, what's going on here? Oh, this cause and effect. Like it's at the point now where we're paying our people enough that when they go to the stores, people will charge them more
Oh,
because they
wow.
know they work for us, right? But we don't want that. And we're like, oh man, like that's a problem we didn't intend, right?
Hmm.
And so there's always these things like it's not as clear cut like, oh, we gave them money, they're getting jobs. Like there are unintended consequences. Now, if you ask them, like, I'd be happy to pay more because at least I have a paycheck and I can pay for things. And at least that storekeeper now he's making a profit, which means he's making extra money, right? And so
Hmm.
now maybe he can go invest in more things or build up the store. Like, how is that going to affect things? So it's an interesting experiment to see, like, okay, what does it look like when you have these highly paid individuals in this really poor area? What happens to the economy in large? How does it affect things? What are the positive and negative effects? So it's been interesting to watch.
Yeah, it's very interesting to hear. Like, it's a whole different set of problems than than you would anticipate.
Yeah,
It's just like you never think about that. Like, well, helping people, paying people more is going to help them more, right? But then you
right.
could really disrupt the whole system. That is, you know, it yeah, is functional in a weird way. I don't know if it is functional, but it sounds like it is in a moderate way.
Yeah, in a moderate way. Yeah.
In a moderate way. Let me ask you this. Um, when you are starting to employ these workers, what are some of the challenges that they face or you face of getting them up to speed into this job or these jobs?
Um, One of the biggest things that we face is like their English is really, really good, but at the same time, like helping them understand context and culture, right? So every culture is a little bit different. Some are more collective, others are more individualistic. These parts of Africa that the refugees are coming from, now they're from multiple countries in Africa. And Africa is a huge place. So,
Yeah.
like, one country is going to be very different from another: West Africa, East Africa, South Africa. But overall, there's a lot of collectivism. They do everything together, which is one of the beautiful things that I love. Right. So it's all about community. It's all about doing things together. Like you hardly ever see people alone. Right. Now, the problem that we have, like with context and stuff like that, is, putting things like punctuality for American companies. If you say you're going to be at a time, you better be there at a time. In Malawi, in this area, it's very much like, no, if I'm talking to an old friend, they're more important than getting to a meeting on time, which in its
Mm,
way is a beautiful thing, but it also makes it really hard to run a company,
yeah.
right, with US companies. So teaching them about this culture, teaching them about context, as well as, teaching them about phrases. Like if someone says, hey, they robbed me blind, right? We would interpret that like, oh, they charged me too much. They
Yeah.
heard that and like, oh my gosh, this company's robbing blind people? Like,
Yeah.
we need to call the
Wow.
authorities. It's like, no, 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 no. It's just it's just a saying. So things like that, training them on culture so they understand, and also for us to understand, like, hey, this is how the culture is in Africa. That's probably the hardest thing.
Dealing with different cultures is always a challenge. I live in Southeast Asia, and
Oh,
I'm actually in Vietnam. I've been in Vietnam the past
no, I didn't know that,
15
man.
years.
That's
Yeah,
cool.
man, that's where I'm at right now. My wife is a singer here, and I work in media, and have a team of editors here that do content for me and my wife, and yeah, man, it's
Mhm.
fun. But when
Cool.
you start working with crossing cultures and like the punctuality thing, today my wife has a Vietnamese teacher who comes. It's one of the teachers from her school, because my daughter is half Vietnamese and she needed some extra help with the Vietnamese homework. And so I told the worker, all right, well, like the teacher, sorry, 5 p.m. is when we want. That's what she asked to start. I was like, okay, we can do it 5. Every day she shows up at 5:15, 5:20, and I'm just like, I've got to go to work. I've got to
Yeah,
go to
yeah,
another shoot, and so it's like, it's interesting because there are these different things, and like you said, like family is, like, meeting up with a family friend is way more important than being punctual,
yeah,
and you do deal with those things. But it's beautiful, like, if you can work through it, because it brings this richness. Like, one of the
yeah.
things that I think is that there is, my wife and I were watching this video today on Instagram or Facebook or something, and it showed this lady, and she's like, she prepped this giant party for her son and invited all of the extended family, and no one showed up. And I was just like, wow. Because that is so foreign to me now, living in Asia. Like, the idea that no one
Right.
shows up for a party, that would never happen here. Like, you have the exact opposite problem. Like, you have a
People you
party.
didn't invite show up. Yeah,
Yeah, there's like all these people. I'm
yeah,
like, who is that guy? And my wife's like, well, that's my mom's cousin's cousin. And I'm just like, why are they here? And so, it's not a
yeah,
bad thing, but you deal with these differences, and so it is interesting that when you start looking at that. But I mean, it's awesome that you guys are finding solutions for that.
yeah. That's awesome. You having that experience with your family, learning different cultures and being there. We had this crazy notion. We took our whole family to. We were doing a library project in Nepal, so we took our whole family to Kathmandu for a month, right? And we're like, okay, we're going to live with a close family friend and his family and stuff, and it's going to be this amazing experience for my kids. And my youngest loved it. She loved every minute of it. My two older ones, they won't travel with me again. Right. And a lot of that wasn't because, like, Nepal's beautiful. Kathmandu is like awesome. Like, me and my wife loved it. But it's hard. It's hard going to a new culture. And it's
Yeah,
hard doing all that. But man, like, if if they can do that, what you're doing with your family, like, it helps you see the world differently. Even with my kids now that they didn't like it, like, they still, like, they look at things differently. They understand not everyone lives this way. Not everyone
yeah,
is this way. Like, and we live in Utah in a community that's like, it's like 90% white, 70% is the same religion. So it's very, like, it's very the same in a lot of ways. So it's good for them to realize that not everyone lives this. And other people live a very different life, and they're still happy. They're still good people, and it's okay for things to be different. And you can learn from them too.
yeah. I love that, and I think that there is one of the things that you said earlier, that I was talking to my mom before this call, and we were chatting about something, and like, I had seen something on social media, and it was a doom and gloom thing, and she's like, "That's not what I've been experiencing," and I was like, "Oh man," and it's like, this we are fed stuff on media, and I'm not going to get into hating on social media right now, but like, there are these lines that we kind of draw up between different people, different ways. But the reality is at the end of the day, everyone wants to love, everyone wants safety, everyone wants to have a better life. And like you said, like, they are gonna help each other if they have the ability to do so. It's just, we have to create situations where we can be the catalyst for that positivity.
Like what you said at the beginning, like, people don't know about it. Like, to be honest,
Hmm.
like, if people could really know what's going on in the refugee camp, we would take in 4 to 5 times as many refugees. And if they also knew what good people they are, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? But because they don't know, or they have a bad perception, or they saw something on the media, they get this perception of refugees. I was, and I don't want to get into politics or anything, but it was so sad for me. As I was down there about a month ago, and this family had been waiting for 8 years to get in the United States. And they were showing me all this paperwork. They were going to go to Indianapolis, everything legal, everything legit, and awesome family, educated, just fantastic. Would be a pillar of any community they're in. And they got to the airport, and that's when the refugee resettlement program was canceled or put on
Man.
hold. And so they had to leave. They had to walk away. They were literally at the airport ready to go. An official came out and said, "Hey, sorry, America's not accepting anyone right now." And it was just heartbreaking. And like, if people knew, like, those are the kind of people, it's not, that's, I think, the biggest thing is people don't hear the good news. They don't hear the good things about other people. So they draw lines, like what you're saying, and they dehumanize other people, because then it makes it easier to whatever.
Yeah. I think that one of the things that was most powerful for me is traveling, to be able to go around the world and to see, because it's very easy to, I mean, we even do it with regions, Northern California hating Southern California, East Coast, West Coast, it's like these
Yep.
lines are drawn up. But the reality is when I moved overseas, I was like, wow, I am so much more like all of the other Americans here. When I'm sitting in a room with a bunch of expats, like I'm like, oh, well, we're similar. Haha. It doesn't matter where you're from. And then when you get those group, all the English speakers, like, we're more similar than we're not. And then, I mean, certainly if we had, the ET visited Earth, we'd be like, oh, we humans are way more similar than not. It's like when you
Yeah.
can give context to something, it makes it so that we're able to see that, we're way more similar. But yet we don't get out of our box. We don't get out. So few people travel enough to see these experiences. And it's like, and now where people are not even like reading, it's like, this is the crazy thing. Like I teach younger kids, and they don't read at all. And like, they don't even watch movies anymore. Like, that was the crazy thing I found out with Gen Alpha. Like, these kids don't even watch movies. They're just like
It's all
binge
these
watching
shorts.
YouTube. It's all shorts and
Yeah.
YouTube. And so what's fascinating to me is like, we're not getting that experience of others. And it's so important because there are people that need help, and this is the thing that for me is wild about living in Vietnam. It's this beautiful, thriving place that's peaceful. But, when I start talking to my mother-in-law about different things, when I talk to my, my mother-in-law has a hoarding problem. I love her to pieces, but she hoards like massively. But when you start looking at why, she grew up in a poor family in the middle of a civil war. And when resources were scarce, when they did not know when there was going to be food on the table, and there were 12 kids in her family, and and they had a lot of people that had to be fed, and and anything that could have been collected or found was a resource. And so here I'm sitting from my first world perspective going, why do we keep all of these plastic bags? I don't understand why this stuff is all here. Why do we have this old set of like silverware? We should just get rid of this. It's extra. Well, that's my perspective. But when I'm able to sit down and listen, one day she started talking about what it was like to live off of half a meal a day, what it was like for their family to have to, run out and try to find food wherever it was at. And it's like, suddenly my preachiness and my, like, my perspective is better than yours dropped real fast,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's really cool, Sean. Like, that's a cool story. And that's cool that you listen, 'cause that's true. Like, if you listen to anyone, you hear their story, you can understand why they do those things, right? Which some things might drive us nuts. And like, even like we talked about the punctuality thing. I had a really good friend who, he was down in Malawi, and they're going to meet with the Secretary of Education, so high level official, right? And he was with my other friend who was his guide and whatnot, and my friend's Malawian, and then my American friend. But while they were going, my Malawi friend met an old friend, as we were talking about before, and just kept talking. And 5 minutes went by, and my American friend's like, "It's okay." But after that, he's like, "Hey, Chris, we got to go. Like, we're going to be late to see the Secretary of Education. Like, we got to go." You know, and my Malawi friend's like, no, I haven't seen this guy in a long time. Like, this is important. And an hour went by, and my friend was so frustrated, my American friend. And finally, they went to go meet the Secretary of Education. He was also an hour late because he met an old friend. But the thing is, like, my American friend was asking him afterwards, like, why? And he's like, well, this was an old friend and he helped me through some hard times. And this was someone that was really important to me when I was extremely poor. And I wanted to give him the time, and that's more important. And he's as they talked more, it was like, hey, in our culture, who you're with is more important. Like, being present is more important. And that
So beautiful.
message, just, I wasn't even there, but it stuck with me. Like, I wish we were more that way. And that's the thing, like,
Yeah.
talking to your mother-in-law and stuff, is like, what things can we learn from people, um and make us a better person, because we can learn something from everybody, you know?
I love that. And it's truly about being present. Like, we live in a very distracted world where we have devices all around us. And, it's like, it's awesome when we're sitting on other sides of the world right now having a conversation. And
Yeah.
that's amazing. I remember when I first moved to Vietnam in 2001. And I used to joke, and my dad and my brother, we were talking about this today, was we had this three-way, FaceTime call. And I when I first moved to Vietnam, there was one place on the backpacker street, and they had this big plastic like container, and it was like a box, and inside was a phone, and you went inside, and they pulled up the call, and it was $1 a minute to call anywhere. And I would sit there and I'd look up and I'm like, all right, Mom, I love you, I hope you're doing well, I'm at $10 right now, I gotta go. And click. And it's like, we live in this world that's so connected, but yet we're also very distant from each other, from the people that are right next to us, and so it's like this idea of being able to it's such a beautiful message to be present, to just be truly present with the people that are in front of you.
Yeah. No, I love that. And it really reminds, like, what's most important is the relationships and connecting and really listening to people instead of just being entertained. And
Right.
that's a whole nother subject. And I know we're about at time, but like, that's another thing, like suicidality, depression, like, it happens,
Yeah.
right? Don't get me wrong. It happens, but to a significantly lesser rate than it does here in the United States.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that is like what you're saying, like Gen Z. And man, I feel like now we're getting old. Now we're complaining about the younger generations, right? Right. But like, yeah, I have this problem with my kids. Like, we have to monitor screen time constantly, and we have to like block social media and all these things, because it's just not healthy. It doesn't
Yeah.
help you at all. It is not real connection. Like, this with technology is awesome, that we can talk and we can connect from other sides of the globe. That's beautiful. But watching YouTube shorts, like, I don't see any value in that, besides it's just funny for a couple minutes, not
100%.
for hours at a time. It's not a replacement for relationships.
Where do you see Zawadie Solutions going? Is it just the name Zawadie Solutions, correct?
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Where do you see it going in the future?
Our goal. So this is probably a really ambitious goal, and my partners challenged me on this. But like, I would like to get to the point where we have 1,000 refugees hired in the camp. And if we do that, we want to create an atmosphere where anyone that comes to the camp, they can find a good job while they're at the camp. And when they get placed or they can save up, then they graduate. That's great. But we want to connect with so many businesses and so many U.S. companies that we can do that we can provide a top of the line quality service for U.S. companies, saving them money, while at the same time helping refugees, to give everyone hope when they get to the camp, that there is a place, if you're hardworking, you have the skills, and we'll even train you how to have the skills. But anyway, that's my hope for it over the next 5 years.
That's awesome, man. Well, where can people go and learn more about what the program and what you guys are offering?
Yeah, go to Zawadie.com. That's spelled Zawadie at the end, .com. And message us. Have a conversation. We'll set up a discovery call. You can set that up with myself or my partner. And we will go over and we'll talk about your company. And if we're not a good fit, we'll be the first person to tell you. But we want to know what your unique challenges are. We'll see how we can help. And I guarantee you, we are cheaper than anything else out on the market. And we also do a better job than even U.S. companies, than U.S. talent does.